The wind tried to kill the flame, but every night it burned. John Tesler reined his horse on the ridge, watching the solitary cabin 2 miles below. A single candle flickered in the frost-edged window, the only light in a world gone dark. Late February cold bit through his coat, sharp as broken glass. 3 nights running, he'd passed this way, hauling supplies to a distant ranch. 3 nights, same candle, same window. He should ride on. It wasn't his business, but something in that solitary flame spoke to the loneliness he carried like a second skin, through field glasses. He watched a woman's shadow move past the window. She knelt before the candle, silhouette suggesting someone young, alone. Her lips moved, prayer or promise. He couldn't tell. The posture held something beyond grief. It held vigil. His horse, Chester, shifted nervously. Wolves howled somewhere in the vast darkness. The temperature was dropping fast. He should make the next town before full night. Instead, John made camp on the ridge. He built no fire, just wrapped in his bedroll and watched that distant window. The candle burned past midnight, steady as a heartbeat. Who was she waiting for that never came? A husband at war? A son gone prospecting? Or someone already lost, whose memory she refused to surrender? The candle suddenly flared brighter, as if someone added oil. John caught a glimpse of her face in profile through the wavering light, young, beautiful, devastated. Then she vanished into the cabin's interior darkness. The candle remained. John shivered, but not from cold. He'd seen that look before, in his own mirror. The look of someone who'd stopped living and started haunting. 3 years he'd been drifting. Ever since Snake River took his brother. 3 years of running from the same question that Candle asked. Who do you light a flame for when everyone's gone? He watched until his eyes burned, until the stars wheeled overhead. The candle never went out. In town, she was invisible. They looked right through her like glass. John entered Bitter Creek's Mercantile the next morning for tobacco. The place smelled of sawdust and coffee, crowded with Saturday shoppers. That's when he saw her, the woman from the cabin. She stood at the counter in a faded but clean dress, dark hair pinned severely back. The shopkeeper served 3 other customers first, though she'd arrived earlier. Women whispered behind gloved hands. She paid in exact coins. Thanked him. He didn't respond. Outside, she loaded purchases into a weather-beaten wagon with movements that spoke of bone-deep exhaustion. John followed, watching from the mercantile steps. Her wagon wheel cracked as she climbed up. The whole thing collapsed sideways, spilling flour sacks into the mud. She stood frozen for 3 heartbeats, then knelt to assess the damage. Townspeople passed by, eyes carefully averted. No one stopped. John crossed the street, knelt beside the broken wheel without asking permission. I didn't ask for help, she said quietly, not looking at him. Didn't offer, John replied, examining the split spoke. Just fixing a wheel. He worked in silence, aware of her tension, the way she held herself like someone expecting a blow. He pulled tools from his saddlebag, replaced the spoke with a spare from her wagon bed, tightened the iron rim. A prosperous-looking rancher approached, 50-something, cold eyes, expensive coat. "Stranger," the man said, voice carrying across the street. "That woman's bad luck. Her husband's 6 months in the ground, but she acts like he's coming home. Ain't natural. Town's got no use for ghosts." The woman's eyes flashed, but she said nothing. John finished the repair, stood, tipped his hat to her. "Thank you," she whispered. She drove away, back straight, despite the weight pressing on her shoulders. John turned to the rancher. "Seems to me she's just a widow tending her grief." The man smiled without warmth. "Grief's one thing. Friend, what she's doing, that's something else entirely. Name's Dutch Calloway. I own most of this county. And I'm telling you for your own good, stay clear of Sarah Morrison. She's got a gift for getting men killed." Calloway walked away. Boots confident on the boardwalk, John watched the wagon disappear down the road, that candle's mystery burning brighter in his mind. Some men carried their dead in whiskey. John carried his in silence. He made camp that evening near the creek, memories surfacing unbidden. 3 years ago, Snake River crossing, his younger brother Thomas, 19 and laughing, rope snapping, current too fast. John had reached, missed by inches. Thomas swept away, gone before he could scream. John had drifted ever since, unable to settle anywhere, unable to forgive the hand that had reached and failed. The storm hit without warning, brutal wind, snow turning the world white. John spotted the cabin light through the blizzard like a star through fog. He approached, saw damaged roof shingles flapping violently, heard a child crying inside. He knocked, waited. Sarah opened the door, wary. A little girl clinging to her skirt, maybe 8 years old, dark braids, enormous eyes. "Your roof won't hold this storm," John said. "I can patch it temporary. Sleep in your barn after." Sarah hesitated, calculating risks, then nodded curtly. John worked in brutal cold, fingers going numb, wind trying to throw him off the roof. He hammered tar paper over the damaged section, secured it with boards. The storm screamed around him like something alive and furious. At midnight he climbed down, half frozen. Through the cabin window he saw Sarah kneeling before that candle, lighting it with ceremony. Her lips moved, shaping words that looked like an oath, not a prayer. She caught him watching from the barn doorway. For a long moment, neither moved. Then she crossed the yard, snow swirling between them. "I promised I'd keep a light burning," she said, voice steady despite the wind. "Until the men who killed my husband face justice. The law won't help, so I wait." John studied her face, young, maybe late 20s, but aged by grief and fury. "That's not mourning, ma'am. That's war." Her eyes met his, flinty and unbreakable. "Then you know why I can't let strangers get close. War burns everyone near it." She turned, walked back to the cabin. The door closed. John stood in the falling snow, knowing he should leave at dawn. Knowing, with absolute certainty, that he wouldn't. The candle burned behind frosted glass, steady as a heartbeat, relentless as memory. He stayed one day, then another, then stopped counting. The storm passed, leaving the world scrubbed clean and blindingly white. John repaired fence line, patched the barn roof, split wood until his shoulders ached. Sarah allowed this silently, pride warring with necessity in her face. Her daughter, Emma, watched him from a distance at first, curious but cautious. On the third day, she approached while he mended tack in the barn. "What's your horse's name?" she asked, barely above a whisper. "Chester," John said. "Want to help me brush him?" She nodded. He showed her how to work the curry comb, how to talk soft so the horse stayed calm for the first time in months. According to Sarah's expression, watching from the cabin window, Emma laughed. Sarah began leaving meals in the barn, silent acknowledgement. One evening she appeared at the barn door. "You might as well eat inside, since it's Christian." Dinner was quiet but warming. Emma asked about his travels. He told stories about Montana mountains, Wyoming deserts, trails that led nowhere and everywhere. Sarah almost smiled once, stopping herself at the last moment. But John noticed things. Boot tracks near the property line, fresh and numerous. Someone watching the cabin, counting livestock, assessing. He mentioned nothing, but started sleeping lighter. Rifle close. In town for supplies. He overheard saloon talk. Dutch Calloway wanted this land for water rights. Had been pressuring Sarah for months. Her husband Daniel had refused to sell. Then came an ambush by drifters. Never solved. Never investigated properly. That night, 3 riders approached the cabin slowly. John stepped into the barn doorway, rifle visible in the moonlight. They saw him, hesitated, then retreated into darkness, across the yard. Sarah stood at her window, candle burning. Their eyes met through the cold air. Both knew what was coming. The thaw had begun. But something colder was gathering. The candle burned lower each night. She was running out of promises to keep. Mid-March brought warmth. Ice breaking on the creek with sounds like gunshots. After Emma fell asleep in the loft, Sarah and John sat by the fire. The walls between them were cracking. "I know who killed Daniel," Sarah said finally. "One of them rode a paint horse with a white blaze. I saw it tied outside Calloway's barn 2 days after. But the sheriff's his cousin. No one will investigate." She stared at the candle, flames reflected in her dark eyes. "This is my vow. I won't forget. I won't forgive. I won't let them erase him like he never mattered." John was quiet a long time. Then, 3 years ago, my brother drowned in Snake River. I was holding the rope. It broke. I've been running ever since, like if I keep moving, I can outrun what I failed to do. Sarah's voice came sharp. "You think dying inside honors him? That's pride, not love. He'd want you living." The words hit like a fist. John looked at her. Really looked. "Why do you light it every night?" "Because someone has to remember he mattered, that what they did matters." "You matter too," John said quietly. Sarah's hand trembled on her coffee cup. John covered it briefly with his own. The touch lasted 3 seconds. No more. Emma stirred above them. They separated. But something had shifted, tectonic and irreversible. "I let myself care about you, John Tesler," Sarah whispered. "You'll end up dead like Daniel." "That's my gift. I'm poison to good men. Then I reckon I'll take my chances." That night, Sarah let the candle burn nearly out before lighting a new one. Through the barn window, John watched her shadow hesitate over the dying flame, then relight it. But she was wavering. The vigil was wearing thin, and something new was trying to be born. They came in the dark, as cowards do. Gunshots woke the homestead at midnight. John ran outside, saw 4 masked riders driving Sarah's small herd through fences, stampeding them toward the creek. He tried to turn the cattle, shouting, waving his arms. The riders wheeled toward him instead. They dismounted, moved fast. John got 2 punches in before they swarmed him. Fists, boots, rifle butts, ribs cracked. Blood filled his mouth. The world tilted. The lead man, tall, voice muffled, leaned close. "Message from Mr. Calloway. Leave, Cowboy. Next time we come for the widow." Maybe the kid. A gunshot split the night. Sarah stood on the porch, rifle smoking. "Get off my land." The men scattered to their horses, rode hard into darkness. 1 steer lay dead in the trampled mud. Fences were shattered. Cattle scattered across 3 counties' worth of prairie. Sarah and Emma dragged John inside. His face was a ruin, ribs grinding with each breath. Emma cried. Sarah's face was stone, hands shaking as she cleaned his wounds. Morning brought worse news. John rode to town, reported to the sheriff. The man barely looked up from his paperwork. No proof who done it. Could have been anyone. Drifters, probably. Even the preacher offered cold comfort. Perhaps the Lord is telling Mrs. Morrison to accept his will and sell while she can. Pride goeth before destruction. Back at the cabin, Sarah's voice broke. You have to leave. I won't carry another good man to his grave. You hear me? Go. John. Through split lips. No, ma'am. That's not your choice. It is exactly my choice. But that night, in pain and doubt, John saddled Chester. He rode to town's edge, made camp alone. The cabin was distant, candle burning in its window like an accusation. He watched it through the darkness, wrestling with whether staying meant love or just another kind of dying. At dawn, he still hadn't decided. His brother's last words came back in the cold. You're the strong one, John. You finish things. John sat watching the sunrise paint the prairie gold and purple. Thomas had said that right before the crossing, grinning like everything was possible. Thomas had always believed John was the brave one. Running now would prove Thomas wrong forever. Worse, it would waste the 3 years John had spent punishing himself. If he couldn't save Thomas, maybe he could save this. He rode back as the sun cleared the horizon. Sarah was in the yard, repairing fence alone, face set in grim determination. She heard hoofbeats, turned, froze. John dismounted. I'm not leaving. Why? Her voice cracked. Why would you stay for this? Because some things are worth finishing. You, this place, the fight. Before she could respond, a wagon rattled up the road. An elderly woman, Mrs. Abernathy, 70 if a day, climbed down with a basket of food. Some of us remember what's right, she announced. Dutch Calloway ran my son off his land 5 years back. I'll testify to that in writing, if needed. Another wagon appeared, a farmer John had seen in town. Calloway tried the same with me, threatened my family. I kept quiet then. I'm done being quiet. Small courage, rippling outward like water from a stone. John looked at Sarah. We gather evidence, ride to the territorial marshal in Copper Falls. If local laws corrupt, we go higher. Sarah hesitated. Emma, if something happens, Emma stays with me, Mrs. Abernathy said firmly. You do what needs doing. That night, Sarah knelt before the candle one last time. Emma watched from the loft as her mother spoke aloud to the flame. Daniel, I kept my word. I didn't forget. I won't ever forget what they did, who you were. But I have to choose living now. For Emma, for me. She extinguished the candle, not to relight it. Outside, John heard everything. When Sarah emerged, eyes red but clear, he simply nodded. The vigil was over. The fight was beginning. They rode together, and that made all the difference. Early April brought genuine warmth. Wildflowers pushing through last winter's grass. Sarah and John rode toward Copper Falls with signed testimonies from 3 families Calloway had victimized. Emma was safe with Mrs. Abernathy. The journey felt almost hopeful, 10 miles from town. Dutch Calloway blocked the road with 5 men. You're making a mistake, Mrs. Morrison. His voice was reasonable, almost kind. Turn back now, and I'll forget this happened. Keep riding. Accidents occur. People disappear on these roads all the time. Sarah's voice came out steel. The only mistake was thinking we'd stay silent forever. John positioned his horse between Sarah and Calloway's men, hand drifting toward his holster. The air went tight. Dangerous. Violence hung there, waiting for permission. Hoofbeats thundered from behind them. Marshal Hicks, territorial law, 50 years old and no nonsense, arrived with 2 deputies. Mrs. Abernathy had sent a messenger ahead, anticipating trouble. "Calloway," Hicks said flatly, "I've been hearing stories about you for 5 years. Never had witnesses before." Calloway tried bluster. "This is a misunderstanding." "Shut up." Hicks took the testimonies, read quickly. "You're under arrest for conspiracy, intimidation, and suspicion of murder. Your men can ride off or join you in irons. Their choice." Calloway's men scattered like quail. The rancher's face went purple with rage, then pale with fear, as they rode into Bitter Creek with Calloway in custody. Townspeople gathered. John spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "This woman has more courage in her little finger than most men carry in a lifetime. She's staying on her land, and I'm staying with her, if she'll have me." Sarah, tears streaming, took his hand publicly. Silence. Then Mrs. Abernathy began clapping. Others joined, not everyone, but enough. Riding home at sunset, Sarah leaned slightly toward John in the saddle. No words needed. The weight had lifted, replaced by possibility bright as spring. The land remembered how to be generous. Late April transformed the homestead. Fences stood straight. Garden rows lay dark and ready. A new cabin addition framed the future. John had taken work as foreman on a neighboring ranch, but lived in the addition. Unconventional, but it worked. Morning found Emma playing with a new foal John had bought at auction. Sarah and John planted vegetables side by side, potatoes, beans, carrots, their movements synchronized, comfortable, like they'd worked together for years instead of months. Midday. Emma chattered about school. She'd re-enrolled, made friends. The teacher said she was bright as a penny. Neighbors occasionally stopped by now. The isolation had broken. Afternoon. Sarah found John repairing the barn door. She approached, hesitant. "I've been thinking," she said. "Maybe come winter, we could make this official, if you're still inclined." John set down his hammer, turned to her, a slow smile transforming his weathered face. "Ma'am, I was inclined the moment I saw that candle." Evening fell soft and warm. Sarah lit a lamp, not a candle, in the window, steady, welcoming light for the living. John rode up from checking cattle. Emma ran to him. He swung her onto his shoulders, her laughter bright as birdsong. "John," Emma asked, "are you my pa now?" John glanced at Sarah, who nodded permission. "If you want me to be." "I want," Emma said firmly. Sarah stood in the doorway, backlit by the lamp's warm glow. The prairie stretched endless around them, soft with spring grass and wildflowers. Smoke rose from the chimney. The land that had been battlefield was becoming home. She'd stopped lighting the candle for the dead that winter. But every evening, she lit a lamp for the living, a beacon that said, "Come home." And the cowboy who'd once passed by, wondering who she missed, he'd found his answer, not in who she'd lost, but in who she'd become. And in the family they'd built from ashes and courage and one small, stubborn flame that refused to go out, the lamp burned steady in the window, guiding everyone home.